Welcome back to Extra Dirt, the podcast designed to help you and your life group put down deeper roots relationally and spiritually. If you haven't heard yet, this is the last one. This is our last episode. It's been good to be with you. We want to send you off strong. And as Dan preaches our last message from Luke this week, I hope you're challenged really to consider that there is no divide between the world that we live in and the spiritual reality that we live in. They are both equally present to us, and therefore we cannot divide our allegiance to this world from our allegiance to God and compartmentalize them. They overlap, they inform each other, they are related to each other. In fact, we know that our obedience to God is actually fulfilled in our submission to the government. And so as you work your way through the study guide, I actually threw one question in there that you might find to be a little bit challenging, and as we look at, as I have you also look up Romans chapter 13, I asked this question: think back to our American Revolution. Was it really right for that American Revolution to happen? And this is not to say that I don't love America. There are many things about America that are wonderful, that I think that are great, that came out of that revolution. But just war theory, the argument of when is it right, when is it a godly thing to actually engage in war, it's a very complex thing. And it's possible that even though good things came out of the American Revolution, that some of the motivations and some of these ideals and ideas that went into it weren't as righteous as we tend to think they were. It's easy for us to say, yeah, America's the greatest, and how could you complain, or how could you fault the original people in the Revolution? But to get back to this question of, was honor paid where honor was due, is something that you might find to be a little bit challenging and convicting. Again, obviously, we're not going to pronounce judgment upon the past, but it is an example where what we tend to easily oversimplify might bring to light some other ideas, some scriptural ideas that we've looked at this week, as far as Jesus saying, hey, pay to Caesar what is Caesar, what is Caesar's, and render to God what is God's. So if you're talking through it again, it could be a fun conversation to have. Try not to hate on each other. Do this in the spirit of grace and mercy, and also understand, hey, this is something that's done, and we're not putting anybody on trial for it or anything. It's just an example that we can use to talk a little bit more deeply about, are we, as fiercely independent Americans, are we always in the right when we refuse to pay honor to somebody, and we justify by saying, well, they don't deserve it? There is something to be said for the fact that God has allowed and ordained government to exist. So, in terms of practical considerations, if there's one idea that I can leave you with as you're seeking to build strong and healthy and vibrant life groups, you really have to understand that life groups essentially do not work if you are unwilling to share your life. If you can't open yourself, if you can't be honest and transparent in a life group, ultimately it's not going to lead anywhere. And one of the easiest first indicators that we can find of this is whether or not people in your life group actually have other people in your homes. And this is such a big deal because you've heard it, said, hey, so-and-so was out of their element, or so-and-so was really in their element, saying that they were very uncomfortable and awkward and not natural in the one circumstance, or incredibly themselves in the other. And it's in our own homes typically that we are the most comfortable, that we are the least guarded, that we are the most likely to share who we really are. Even the sorts of food that we eat, the decorations on our walls, the music that we play or don't play, all of these things are reflections of ourselves. And if I invite a life group into my home, I am revealing a part of myself that they may never see when I'm at church, when I'm out of my element. Well, in my case, sort of my element, but for many people, coming to church is a time where they put on the Christian face. Just walking into this building has this subtle effect on the way they act and the way they behave. And so meeting in a life group, for instance, here in the church, by its very nature, inhibits some of the expression that can make a life group so healthy and so powerful. And so if there are people in your group who have just been coming and coming and coming and haven't been contributing and haven't actually opened themselves up to the group, they don't typically feel the deep-seated connection that a really healthy life group will have. And what I would encourage you to do, especially over the summer, when perhaps your plans are not as fixed or not as firm or regular, to say, hey, it is our desire, it is our goal that this summer each of you would host something, whether it's a dessert night or whether it's a barbecue or whether it's just a game night or I don't know, whatever it may be. Try to encourage each couple or each person or each family within your life group to invite the rest of the group into their family so that you can experience who they are on their own turf, when they're comfortable, when they're in their element, and you can begin to build these relationships that stretch far beyond just, can we get together and talk about Jesus together? Because it's in those relationships that real encouragement, that real understanding happen, and that we can actually become the iron that sharpens iron. So I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. I hope you've been blessed by it. I know it's been a challenge for me some weeks and a great joy for me on others. It's been good to be with you. I wish you and pray really for all God's blessing on you as you continue to build strong life groups. But I encourage you again, don't neglect the fact that these are not just Bible studies. They're about reality. They're about life. They're about us engaging in the relationships that God has created for. So with that, may God bless you richly and prosper the work of your hand as you go about building his kingdom. God bless.